Okay, so hopefully you're back after the previous video, which you found absolutely riveting. And now we're going to talk about a couple more. We're going to talk about the Payment Card Industry's Data Security Standard, otherwise known as PCI DSS. And we're also going to talk about a thing which just rolls off the tongue called the EU DPD 9546 EC, which is the European Union's Data Privacy Directive 9546 EC. I don't know what that is, do you? Don't know what the EC usually means, the European Community, but who knows what that means. So let's just talk about that then. So one of the things that you see about the cloud from Microsoft is this PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. Mm-hmm. What does that mean that we can and can't do?
Okay, yeah, no, it's there's lots of confusion around what that means. So the PCI DSS is a set of global standards which really apply to anyone who's taking payments by credit card or debit card, or environments around that, about how you specifically handle that data in transit and in storage, and how you actually maintain the controls around it. Because we've all been aware of security breaches and issues about credit card details getting stolen, and the concerns that the whole industry has around that environment. So the PCI DSS is really driven about how you handle that data, and it goes to a great level of detail about what you can and cannot do with that data. The PCI DSS applies to any data that's transferred where you include the primary account number. So as soon as you put that string of 12 digits in, the 4, 5, 6, 7 dash whatever it is all the way through, as soon as you put that into any system, you then have to make sure you have adequate controls and protections around that system, not just that one piece of data. And it needs to be monitored and audited and tracked for it as well. So it gets very difficult when you're looking at what people are looking to do around that provider to say, well, what actually goes through it. I'll give you the example. So Microsoft, when we take payments from customers through Xbox or the Azure payment platform or Hotmail or anything whereby you turn up and you pay with your payment credit card to Microsoft, that payment system that Microsoft has and the data centers that we operate that payment systems in are PCI certified. They are level 1, the top level that you can actually get for PCI certification about how Microsoft is going to handle the payment card data, because it comes into our control and we will be responsible for what happens to that information. So we take that incredibly top level security, all those other things around it, and there are certain things you have to do, encryption at rest, controls around virtualization. The whole environment for that environment goes to a whole level far removed from what you would do for a standard cloud service provider where you're looking at collaboration data or ad hoc data for it as well. What it doesn't mean is that when we say that we are PCI certified, it doesn't mean that the actual services that we provide, so the Office 365, is suitable as being a card payment system. So for example, if a customer came along and said, I would like to use Microsoft Exchange Online as a mechanism to send payment card details from a shop in wherever through to send that details into my billing system. As soon as it hit the email system, then that email system would have to be PCI certified, which is not suitable because we'd have to be in plain text, and it's an email system. So I personally would question, why are you sending my credit card details in plain text through this environment? I really don't want to shop with you anymore. That's not appropriate to do. However, and that's really where we get to this level of granularity where we say, if you're looking to use the services for things like payment cards and taking payments and pushing it through that service, then looking at things like Office 365 is probably not the right platform for you. However, what certain customers have done or organizations have done is to look at it and say, I can use an existing payment card system. I can use PayPal, WillPay, whatever system is out there,
or any existing credit card payment system.
Absolutely. The information that's core to my business. If I lost customer payment details, I could jeopardize my business on that environment immediately as soon as that information came through. So by keeping that data core to me and taking responsibility for that data and either using a system, a standalone system, and then rendering that through the environment or interfacing with it, that's a way that you can overcome this challenge. So you say, here is my commodity shop hosted in Azure or whatever the platform would be, and here is the payment system. So as soon as you click to pay, it sends you off to the redirect of that system as well. And that's really where we're getting around this whole cloud service. So when people see PCI certified or PCI certification, they really need to dig into what that actually means. Which systems are they saying are PCI certified? Because ultimately you have to look at it and say, what is the exposure risk for me as an organisation if it was a breach?
And I think the vast majority of Microsoft's customers aren't going to want to build their own payment system.
No.
They are going to naturally want to just use a payment system that has been already built and just use that and just use it to take payments.
Correct. I mean, if you take the analogy of eBay, eBay uses PayPal, and that's the environment for it. It's a different system, but everyone knows how that operates and how that manages. But there are alternate providers out there for payment card systems.
Okay, so to get this really clear, then, Microsoft's data centers and Azure and Office 365, so on, are PCI DSS compliant, but only because in order to use those services you have to pay, and it's a mechanism for us to take payment using our own payment system.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And I know, for example, that there's another cloud provider who have, you can buy compute, you can buy storage, you can buy database, you can buy a whole bunch of services, and one of the ones that you can buy is a payment system. That payment system is not part of their compute environment. It's like a separate thing that they have, and it's almost the same from Microsoft, apart from we don't allow you to use our payment system. You could go and use, as you said, PayPal or WorldPay or one of those.
The others that are available for it, and the ability of going to the cloud, the agility that gives you, is really down to this idea of I need to take some responsibility about my information architecture, information security architecture, and say, what do I need to keep core to me and my business? Payment card is one of those details where you say, I need to keep that core. I can use an alternate provider that I know has got adequate protections and all the other things that sit within that environment, and they will certify against that for me. And then I can use this for the commodity side of things, which could be the commercial platform, or however you want to build that environment for that. And that's really the key benefit of using cloud services. Really.
Okay, that's great. And then let's move on now to. And we've done it, haven't we? EU DPD 9546 EC.
Yes, so EU Directive on Privacy is probably the easiest way to do that one. Okay. So the EU Directive on Privacy is obviously a European Union directive that was put in place a number of years ago, which has then rolled out to each member state. So, for example, the UK has the Data Privacy Agreement, which really drives I can't remember what it's called. I don't think it's DPA, but
it's the Data Privacy Act.
That's the Data Privacy Act. Sorry, not agreement. That's something else that we use and provide all the time anyway. But the Data Privacy Act, which is our interpretation and our implementation of the EU Directive on Privacy. So each state has this type of environment. And what it really gives you is the ability to say, when I take Planky information and I have information about you, how am I going to protect you as an individual to make sure that you have adequate controls and protections around that environment for you? And you can send that data to any other member state within the EU, because we're all part of the same club and we all handle data in the same way, and we're all respectful of individuals' information and security controls for it. What doesn't really happen is when you want to send it outside of the EU. So if I need to send data to India or South America or information around that, or I'm using a cloud service provider that goes worldwide about this environment, I need to ensure that there's adequate protections in place for wherever that data is shared. So, and that's what the EU Directive on Privacy really is looking for, is to make sure that there is adequate protection no matter where that data goes.
And the reason you mentioned a worldwide provider is because, if you're a worldwide provider with data centers all around the world, it means you've got a network, which means the data could flow. Anyway, it's the nature of the internet is that you don't really know the route it's going to take before you let the data go.
No, absolutely. And again, under the EU, you as the customer will still be the data controller. You are the controller of that data. and then you'll use a service provider who's the data processor.
Yeah.
And there are agreements that are put in place between those two environments. Now, what the EU actually Directive on Privacy allows you to do is to send data anywhere you want, as long as it has adequate protections in place.
Yeah.
So one of the scenarios that you'll see everyone talk about is the use of safe harbor.
Yeah.
So safe harbor is an agreement between the US Department of Export Control.
Some US department. Yeah.
Yeah, and the EU, which allows organisations and data to be transferred between the US and from the EU to the US, and ensures that there is adequate protections in place for those transfers to that data.
Yeah, you mean to not just anywhere into the US, but to the US organisations that have safe harbour?
Yeah, they have to be safe harbour certified. So Microsoft is safe harbour certified.
Yeah.
We maintain and contract to say we will always keep the certification, which means that data can be transferred from the EU to the US.
Yeah.
What it doesn't give you is that there's not adequate protections in every single country in the world.
Yeah.
So Canada has adequate protections. I think Argentina has as well. PIPTA is the Canadian one. But you can transfer data to those organisations as long as you adhere to those standards that they have. But you have real challenges if you start looking at other regions around the world, and if you're a global provider, it gets even more problematic because you suddenly start going, well, how do I know this? Or over the course of the next 5 years, this service could evolve to be completely geo-dispersed. It could be anything that's there, and how do I ensure that? So one of the things that Microsoft's invested quite heavily in is something called EU model clauses. So
EU model
clauses. So
EU model clauses.
The European Union have a defined set of model clauses and controls that they put in place that you can sign up to, and you can say, as part of my contract with you, Mr. Customer, I agree to this set of controls that will manage and ensure that there is adequate protections irrespective of where the data goes.
Yeah.
So if it goes to the US, safe harbor applies.
Yeah.
That's great because that's adequate. But if it goes to any other country, then EU model clauses apply, which means that you're in an idea whereby you can fulfill your regulatory requirements under the EU because you're having adequate protections put in place around that environment, and you have clear demarcation about what we will and won't do around that environment. And it means that as services evolve or change, and we flow information elsewhere, you're adequately protected over the course of those things because you have these EU model clauses in place. So that's something that you can see, and changes around that environment will apply through there. I mean, one of the things that Microsoft's really taken on board is trying to get to that level of openness about where data will go. So if you take the Office 365 environment, we have full data flow maps that you can go and download from the Trust Center, which show details about where data will go for the Office 365 offering. And we'll look to expand that over the course of the next few years as well to other services. But it's certainly something that customers need to be mindful of and be respectful of, and look at what protections are in place and to ensure that data can be transferred outside of the EU.
Great, okay. Right, so hopefully you found that absolutely and utterly riveting, and you can't wait to tell your friends all about this and get all their to look at it as well. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.